Have you ever had a moment where staying silent was the loudest thing you could do? I was banned from my sister's wedding. They said I would ruin the mood. So, I packed my silence and flew to Antigua with my fiancé. No drama. No fight. Just distance. But while they toasted under chandeliers, the groom's financial empire started to collapse. Secrets surfaced, my name came up in federal files, and I said nothing. Because I had already said no 8 months earlier when no one listened. So when they called me bitter, jealous, unnecessary, they did not know I was the one holding the missing piece. And I never had to raise my voice. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sunlight pouring through the windows like it always did around mid-morning, when Savannah's name lit up my phone. I thought she was sending an update about the bachelorette weekend in Miami. Maybe another Pinterest board or a shoe poll. But the message was brief. Ice cold. Surgical. Hey, just a heads up, you are no longer in the bridal party. Preston and I decided to simplify the wedding party. We are keeping things light and positive. Hope you understand. That last line twisted in my chest. Hope you understand. I read it again, slower. This time my hands felt suddenly too big, too clumsy to hold the phone. No call. No conversation. Just a heads up. Just 2 weeks ago, she and I had gone to that overpriced boutique in Capitol Hill. I had watched her twirl in her third Vera Wang dress while I held up my phone to get the best angles for her Instagram stories. 2 months ago, I helped her organize the guest list in Mom's kitchen. I even designed her save the date cards. Now, I was not even welcome to stand beside her. I did not know what to say or feel. Just hollow. The next thing I did was instinct. I texted back, got it. Thanks for letting me know. I watched the screen until the word seen appeared. That was the end of it. No apology, no love you anyway. Just silence. I dialed Mom. Straight to voicemail. Then I texted, did Savannah talk to you? 15 minutes passed. Then the dots blinked. Finally, a reply, yes. She told us last night. We are supporting her decisions. It is her big day. Try to understand, Claire. There it was again. Try to understand. I wanted to scream. I walked around the apartment in slow, uneven circles. This was not just about a dress or a role. This was about being erased again. Savannah was the golden child. Always had been. When I got a full ride to my university, they barely looked up from her dance recital. My achievements were a footnote, hers the headline. But this felt like the final underline. When Ethan walked in that evening, he immediately knew something was wrong. His face tensed the second he saw me on the couch, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them like a child. Claire, what happened? I handed him the phone. He read the message, brows pulling together. Are you serious? She cut you out like that? I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. She wants a more positive vibe. Apparently, I do not qualify. He sat down beside me, pulling me into his chest. His warmth wrapped around me like a blanket. I am so sorry, baby. That is not okay. None of this is okay. I felt the tightness in my throat again, but pushed the tears down. And Mom knew. Dad too. They did not say anything. Not even a warning. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, do you want to go to the wedding? I mean, do you want to stay here in this? Let them define how you feel, how you spend your time. Or do you want to get away with me? Go somewhere that does not know their names. Somewhere peaceful. I blinked, unsure if I heard him right. Like a trip. Like an escape. He stood up, already pulling out his laptop. Let us see what is out there. Caribbean. Bahamas. St. Lucia. Somewhere with no wedding hashtags. No bridesmaids. Just sun and silence. I watched him scroll for a moment. I was not hungry. I was not even angry anymore. I was just tired. I walked back to him slowly. Can we leave this week? We can leave Friday. I will make it happen. I nodded. You are not running away. His voice was so steady, so certain. You are reclaiming your time. Big difference. In that moment, I realized he saw me. Really saw me. Not as someone's sister. Not as a side character. Just Claire. I opened my phone again and stared at Savannah's text. The words still stung, but this time I did not flinch. I opened a new message, this one to Mom and Dad. Hi. I will be away for a while. Please respect my space. I need time to rest. I hit send before I could overthink it. Ethan turned to me. There is this private villa on the southern coast of Antigua. Ocean view. No neighbors. You want it? I smiled. Yes, book it. That night, I packed a small suitcase. I chose swimsuits over formal wear, books over makeup kits, peace over pleasing. I was going to the Caribbean with the one person who had not once made me feel like a backup plan. 7 hours and 2 connections later, we landed in Antigua. The air was humid and salty, thick in a way that reminded you to breathe slower. A private car waited for us, sent by the villa staff. When we arrived, it was almost sunset. The house sat on a low bluff overlooking the ocean. Endless blue, broken only by sunlight flickering on the water. No voices. No dresses. No toasts. Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind. This place is for healing, Claire. Not forgetting, not escaping. Just healing. We spent the first few days barefoot, eating pineapple and grilled fish on the terrace. We did not talk about the wedding. Not once. The quiet gave space for the tension in my shoulders to melt, but it also gave space for things I had buried to surface. One night, after dinner, we sat on the sand with a blanket wrapped around our shoulders. The stars were so clear. The sound of the tide came in slow and steady, like a breath that never ran out. Ethan had been quiet for a while, more than usual. When he finally spoke, it was like he had been practicing the words. I have not told you everything about Preston. My head turned before I even thought about it. He did not look at me. He was still watching the waves. What do you mean? He tapped a piece of driftwood against a smooth white stone. A few years ago, I freelanced with a startup. Preston was one of their secondary investors. I was in enough meetings to hear how Preston constantly pushed for features that made the app look more like a gambling platform than a financial tool. After we moved in together, I started hearing more little things. Rumors. A designer friend told me Obsidian Capital's audit reports were always late. Another guy said the numbers in their pitch decks never added up. I pulled the blanket tighter around my legs. So you knew? Or at least suspected? He nodded slowly. I did not have proof. And I did not want to be the guy who sounded like he was trying to trash your sister's fiancé. I thought staying silent was the kinder thing. I looked down at my hands. I told my parents, that something felt wrong about Preston. That the way he talked about money did not sit right with me. They said I was jealous. That I was always trying to compete with Savannah. That I did not like anyone getting more attention than me. My voice cracked at the end. Ethan reached for my hand. You were not jealous. You were aware. Why do they never believe me? I asked, swallowing the knot rising in my throat. Because believing you would mean seeing Savannah as imperfect. And they built too much of their hope on her being flawless. I stared at him. Silence never protected me, Ethan. It just made me easier to erase. Back in the villa, I stood barefoot at the edge of the infinity pool. I remembered the way my father had clapped Preston on the back at Thanksgiving like he had always belonged. I remembered sitting there, wine glass untouched, while everyone talked about how lucky Savannah was. I saw it coming, and they made me feel crazy for it. Around midnight, the buzzing started. My phone lit up. Messages from my mother, my aunt, my cousin. My mother's text read, "We did not mean to hurt you, honey. Please call us when you can. Your father is very upset." Then my aunt, "Just heard what happened. I am sure it is a misunderstanding. Maybe we can all clear things up before more people hear the wrong version." The wrong version. I let the phone fall face down onto the blanket. Ethan leaned on one elbow. You do not have to say anything. Why does it still feel like I owe them something? Because that is what they trained you to feel. That your worth is in how quietly you disappear. You are not their keeper, Claire. You do not have to fix it. By the third night, I opened the messaging app, scrolled through everything and archived every thread. Not deleted, just set aside. Like closing a drawer I no longer needed to search through. The first alert came not from my phone, but from Ethan's. A soft chime around 6 in the morning. He sat up slowly, the screen casting a dull glow across his chest. He handed me the phone without a word. Preston's name was everywhere. Obsidian Capital under SEC investigation for fraud allegations. The text was worse. False valuation. Investor misrepresentation. Unauthorized shell transfers. The article was already being picked up by national outlets. The company's accounts were reportedly frozen. Ethan looked at me, his voice careful. This is not gossip anymore. This is federal. He opened his laptop and pulled up an email from my cousin, marked urgent. She wrote that something strange had happened the night of the rehearsal dinner. An old college friend of Preston, a finance guy, got tipsy and started telling a story that sounded like a confession. He said Obsidian was on the edge last year, taking creative reshuffling and an anonymous bailout to keep from sinking. Savannah overheard every word. She dragged Preston into the wine cellar after the last guest left. She asked if the prenup was still valid. Preston snapped, threw a wine glass against the floor, and shouted that she was paranoid. Savannah left the mansion, took a ride-share to my parents' house, and locked herself in the guest room. She had not spoken to Preston since. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. It was clinical. Please do not engage with the press. We need to protect the family's image. It is important to stay neutral. Neutral. As if our family name were a stock price she did not want to see drop. I dropped the phone onto the bed. I remembered something I had told Ethan earlier in the trip, something I had not planned to share. 8 months ago, I had been asked to review a potential funding deal through my firm. Obsidian Capital was one of the interested investors. Preston's name was buried on page 15 of the pitch deck. I recognized it immediately. Something about the way he was described did not sit right. I flagged the proposal, documented my concerns, and ultimately declined to sign off. It was just instinct. A whisper that said no. When I expressed concern to my parents back then, my mother told me I needed to work on being happy for my sister. My father told me being skeptical was not the same as being smart. Now, the truth was crawling out of the cracks. That night, my mind felt restless. I reached for my phone and saw the notification. An email from my former company. Subject, SEC inquiry. Request for clarification. The message was direct. Obsidian Capital was under active investigation. Several contracts were being reviewed. My name had appeared on an unsigned draft that dated back nearly 8 months. They wanted to know if I would be willing to provide any background on why I chose not to sign. I read it twice. I did not feel fear. I felt relief. Ethan walked out to the patio. Everything okay? I held up the phone. They are looking into it. The SEC. The contract I refused to sign. It is part of the file now. They're asking for insight. He sat up straighter. Are you being dragged into it? They're asking for insight, that is all. I have not been accused of anything. Are you going to respond? I looked out at the dark ocean. I think I already did when I said no. When I walked away. I think the truth can handle itself now. The next morning, I wrote back to the legal counsel with a simple statement confirming my prior concerns and my decision not to participate in the investment, citing ethical discomfort. I offered to speak if they needed clarification, but made it clear I had never been involved beyond that point. It felt like signing something sacred. Like putting a period at the end of a sentence I had been forced to carry for far too long. When I hit send, I did not shake. I did not cry. I just exhaled. On our last morning in Antigua, I finally called my mother back. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Not cold, just afraid. Claire. Savannah is not doing well. She has not left the house since everything happened. She keeps asking for you. I let the silence hang there. Mom, she erased me from her life. You all did. Her voice cracked. I know. And we were wrong. Savannah wants to speak to you if you are willing. Later that afternoon, I sat at the edge of the bed, laptop propped on a pillow. Ethan sat nearby, his hand resting lightly over mine. Savannah's face appeared on the screen. Her eyes were swollen. She looked smaller somehow. You were right about Preston, she said softly. About everything. I just did not want to believe it. It was easier to think you were jealous than admit I had chosen someone who could do all that. I am not asking you to forgive me. I just miss you. And I hate that I only realized how much when everything else started falling apart. I swallowed hard. I do not want you to fall, Savannah. I never did. I just did not want to be the one always catching you while no one caught me. You do not fix things by pretending they did not happen. I carried the shame for all of us for too long. I do not want to be the girl erased from the frame anymore. That is all. Savannah nodded, tears streaming down her face. That is fair. The cold hit me the moment we stepped out of the airport in Portland. It felt like stepping back into a room I had once been locked inside, only this time I held the key. We drove to my parents' house. Dinner was already set. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes. But no one looked comfortable. Dad put down his fork, looking straight at me. I should have spoken up years ago. I let things happen because it was easier not to cause waves. But easy does not mean right. And I am sorry for standing still when I should have stood beside you. Mom chimed in, her voice thin, brittle. I thought Savannah needed more. I thought you would be fine, Claire. You always were. I set my fork down. I was fine because I had to be. That does not mean I was okay. But I am not carrying it all anymore. I am not the fixer, not the buffer, not the one who absorbs everything to keep the peace. Savannah looked right at me. No tears, no excuses. Just watching. Listening. A few weeks later, we sat in a therapy center. The therapist guided us through generational dynamics. My mother admitted she modeled strength as silence, confusing resilience with repression, and passed that down to both of us. Savannah admitted she thought being good meant pleasing everyone. We did not solve everything. We did not even touch every wound. But we named the shape of it. And that mattered. Months later, the dining table was set, and the scent of roasted rosemary turkey drifted from my kitchen. It was the first time I had ever hosted Thanksgiving. My name was on the invitation. The guest list was mine. The seating chart was mine. Ethan stood at the stove, carefully basting the turkey. A hesitant knock at the door sounded. I opened it to see Savannah holding a pie tin. Behind her were our parents, carrying a casserole dish. I let them in. No formal welcome. No speeches. Just space. Dinner was easy. Uncomplicated. We passed dishes, clinked glasses, and made jokes. No one mentioned the past. The silence between us was not weighted anymore. It simply rested. I sat at the head of the table. Not at the far end, not scribbled in as an afterthought. After dessert, I stood up. Everyone turned to listen. Not long ago, I was told I was not welcome at my own sister's wedding, I said. So I bought a plane ticket. Not to escape, but to choose joy. I went to the Caribbean with the man I love. And while the wedding unraveled, so did everything that had been false in our family. And what was true, it stayed. I lost a seat at someone else's table, but I built my own. And you are all sitting at it now. My mom reached over and placed her hand on mine. We did not speak. We did not need to. Later, as I curled up on the couch with Ethan, the pie tin empty beside us, he whispered, "You did it. You were the first to stop pretending." For the first time, my story did not end in exile or silence. It ended with a full table. With names remembered, with seats offered, not earned. I did not get revenge. I got restoration. And maybe, in the end, that is the real victory. Have you ever had to draw a line to protect yourself? To rebuild something healthier, even if it meant walking away from what broke you? If you have, share your story in the comments. I would love to hear how you found your way back home.